Welcome to another episode of Ryan's Recap. I'm Ryan Chevalier and I'll be your host today. Overall, we have a great show. I have Bill Hastings, a water systems owner and specialist, who's going to talk to us about how we're going to replace the lead pipes in Boston and with copper, but there might be a hazard with this copper. I'm going to explain later, so stay tuned for this. Overall, let's get into Ryan's Recap, where you're going to hear the stories you want to hear and the big news. We start off Ryan's Recap with the lead being in the water. We've continued this story in the past, and I've done an update on it, and I want to show you a news package I've created based off of the lead being in the water fountains for Boston Public Schools. Check it out. 8 Boston public schools have high levels of lead in their water after 38 Boston schools were tested. Also, a recent finding in Newton at Burr Elementary School has found exceeding amounts of lead in 5 out of the school's 7 water fountains, according to Principal Mindy Joel. Kids and staff at 4 Boston schools may have been exposed to the water with elevated levels of lead after fountains were turned on prior to passing lead test results. Monday, June 13th at 6 p.m. at Rafael Hernandez School, you can join the meeting discussing recent water test results. That confusion on the miscommunication when they turned the water fountains on, that affected schools such as Lee School, Curry School, and Mather Elementary School. Overall, 2 people were put on administrative leave by Mayor Marty Walsh on an announcement, and the fountains were put on just before they were tested. So last summer, the district spent over $300,000 trying to fix 6 schools with new water fountains as part of their program. But this is an ongoing situation, and we're going to discuss it later in an interview with Bill Hastings. Breaking news, Muhammad Ali has died, and he died at the age of 74. He was hospitalized in Phoenix, and he had respiratory problems and later passed away. He was an icon both inside and outside the ring, breaking racial barriers and spending 3 years refusing to be drafted into the military service during the Vietnam War. He fought such great famous boxers as Sonny Liston and beat these boxers. He fought Joe Frazier in the famous Down Goes Frazier, and also stopped George Foreman. He was a great athlete. He basically floated like a butterfly and he stung like a bee, just as his quote said. He finished with a record of 56-5 with 37 knockouts and was the first man to win a heavyweight title 3 times in a row. Breaking news, we have again, continuing on Ryan's Recap. The Cleveland Cavaliers will face off against the Golden State Warriors in the finals this year. The NBA Finals rematch of the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James versus the 73-win Warriors. The Warriors in the first game beat Cleveland 104-89, and Golden State's bench was the big impact. Not Steph Curry or Klay Thompson, but instead the bench outscored the Cavs 45-10 in that game. And Draymond Green had 16 points and 11 rebounds. LeBron James was 1 assist shy of a triple-double with 23 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists. And Steph Curry, after the game, stated, "You don't win championships without the entire squad coming in and making an impact on games. That's why we're here." In unemployment numbers, the U.S. economy only added 38,000 jobs in May, according to the Labor Department. It was the worst month of positions being filled since 2010. It's a pretty gloomy report. Hard to find a silver lining in this one, says Kurt Long, the Federal Credit Union's chief economist. And overall, the U.S. employment It did fall to 4.7%, but those numbers are skewed because over 500,000 people dropped out of searching for jobs and are no longer accounted for. In the race, the political race that never seems to end, Hillary versus Trump, the Clintons' margin is now narrowed down to 3%, whereas a 48% for Hillary Clinton and 45% recent poll showed. Clinton originally held an 11-point lead, but NBC News Wall Street Journal polls show that Clinton and Trump are also the most unpopular presidential nominees for president ever. The 58% have a negative view of Trump, while 54% of Americans have a negative view on Clinton. And in other news, Worcester and Leominster are trying to help their panhandling issue by trying to get people off the streets. Through this story, it's based off of not giving donations to panhandlers, and one of the statements made is, I'd say 99% of panhandlers are for just clothing or housing, and the panhandlers use this for drugs or alcohol, said Kevin McLean, a director for homeless services in Fitchburg. So rather than giving the money, residents are being asked to donate the money to charity. So in other news, we go on to 4 service members were found dead from floods in Texas. The 4 members went missing when fast-moving Texas floodwaters swept away a truck in Fort Hood. The training exercise was routine, and 12 of the soldiers had been learning how to drive a military vehicle. An investigation is continuing to see what happened in this incident. The downpour was dumping about 3 inches of rain per hour in some regions, and the death toll in the tragic flooding climbed to 9 Friday. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the soldiers, their families, and the Fort Hood community, Texas Governor Greg Abbott said. So we're going to go to a PSA break, and when I come back, I'm going to be with Bill Hastings, a systems water specialist who's going to give us a little view into the health problems with copper leading. Stay tuned.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too?
What are you, superheroes?
Just 4 brothers who hate bullies and love this city. Gear up, guys.
Welcome back to Ryan's Recap, and I'm sitting alongside Bill Hastings. He's a water systems owner, and he also is a specialist in the overall. I want to get into how these Boston public schools, their water fountains have been found to have lead in them. What were your first thoughts when you saw the reports?
My first thoughts when I saw the report were that usually what's happening today is that lead piping system is a service pipe that comes from the city mains which is attached by a corporation to the city mains. From there it goes to a curb stop, which what that does is that it allows the water to be shut off if someone's not paying their bill. And then it goes into either a house or to a water fountain that's being serviced by the schools or the public in general. So when lead was mentioned, that's where I thought the lead would be coming from, was from a lead water service line applications that lead to eventually the drinking water from either a fountain or a faucet.
And there were children who probably were younger or of the age of 6 years old. And there's studies showing that children 6 years old or younger are at greater risk with exposure to lead, and it can have such problems as brain development problems, leading to learning disabilities, behavior problems, and this is all coming from the Environmental Protection Agency. So with some of these schools being grades K through 8, how alarming is it that you may have had kids 6 years old or younger drinking this water?
I think the two things they need to address there is to remedy the problem first, get the lead piping out of there so that doesn't continue. And if the parents feel or the schools feel necessary, the children can be tested for the amount of lead that's entered into their bodies. So it may be to their best interest to have their children seek medical attention just to find out if there's been any problem, okay, that could originate. The two problems that occur most are facing pregnant women and young children.
Mm-hmm. And how did you feel the state did with the aftermath of having water in the Boston public schools contaminated? There were several reports that came out that they were doing everything they can, really serious on the issue. What did you think about how they handled it?
I think they're probably taking a look at situations like Flint, Michigan, and they're reacting as fast as they can because they don't want to have another Flint come to this state of Massachusetts, which I don't believe would occur. I mean, Massachusetts takes a pretty strong stance in taking a look at the lead situation, especially in the city of Boston here with the Water and Sewer Commission. They're actively pursuing the removal of lead pipe from drinking, from potable drinking water systems.
Mm-hmm. There's also on the page on the environmental protection that lead is a neurotoxin metal that accumulates both soft tissues and bones. Even levels of exposure can have health defects, including the brain, nervous system, blood disorders. So how important is it that we get these lead pipes out of these schools?
That tells you right there how important it is. I mean, it's very important, especially now that we realize, okay, what's happening health-wise to young children and even adults. I mean, we have other alternatives that we can use that are safe measures that can provide safe drinking water for the taxpayers and the citizens of Massachusetts. So I think that it requires immediate attention. And just for the health reasons that you just mentioned. I mean, I would not want to have one of my children, okay, affected by lead and realize that at one time it could have been taken care of and people didn't react. And again, the Flint situation is a sad one. Let's not repeat it.
Mm-hmm. And what causes lead to seep into the drinking water? You're kind of a specialist in this. Could you just explain how it seeps in?
What it does is that when you put a new service in, usually what happens is that in piping systems, they become coated. Okay, there'll be a film that is inside the inner diameter of the tubing or the service line that that the potable water is passing through. And what typically happens is that where you're going to get your strongest concentration is when it's brand new, because it hasn't been able to build that film up, and also when it remains dormant for a period of time. And most people's water systems remain dormant at night because nobody's up and nobody's running any water. So if it's a new installation, especially, let's say copper in this case, okay, you'll see where the film hasn't occurred, the water remains dormant, and you'll also see it in your hot water more than you will your cold water. That's why they recommend that in many towns that they recommend that you use your cold water for any of your drinking water applications or cooking applications versus your hot water. your hot water is going to contain more lead or copper in it than would cold water. My solution to that would be other alternatives such as plastics that can receive the coating but don't give off any harmful health effects such as copper or lead does.
And we're going to get into the dangers of copper and how plastic is beneficial. But I want to quickly mention the federal reduction in lead for the Drinking Water Act. President Obama signed in 2011. What did this act briefly do for America?
What it did was that it took, it's called the Safe Drinking Water Act, and it basically allows up to 1/4% of lead being used in our water systems. And prior to Obama passing that, it was 8%. So it's a considerably big difference. It all started with President Reagan, and then Bill Clinton increased the or decreased the lead amounts, okay, that were allowable in potable drinking water. And then Obama has taken it from that 8% down to 1/4% to be passed through, which from what the government's telling us is safe. I mean, there are, again, other alternatives where it'll be 0 lead, but we've gone from considerably high amounts of lead to 8% to 1/4%. So I'm happy to say that we're making tremendous progress. It's taken some time to have it happen, but at least the progress is going forward, and that's what I take a look at, is considering that being successful.
And we're going to take a quick video break to see John Sullivan. He's the Commissioner Chief Engineer for Boston Water and Sewer Commission. And he's going to talk about Boston. He's down in Washington, D.C. during this video. And he's going to talk about how they're trying to fix the lead problem in Boston. And we're going to hear how Mr. Hastings has a little bit of a different opinion after, based on how Boston should be going about this process. So let's see that video.
We will start with John Sullivan. John is the Chief Engineer for Boston Water and Sewer Commission. John has over 43 years' experience in water and wastewater engineering. Mr. Sullivan is a registered professional engineer and certified operator of drinking water supplies in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. John will be discussing Boston's lead replacement initiative program. Welcome, John.
Thank you, David. Well, I'm happy to be down here in D.C., where they have more lead problems than we do. So this is a very positive thing for us. I only say they have more problems than they do is because we have been at it for so long. We have tried everything, every way, how to get people to understand the problems with lead and how to go about removing the lead at mostly our expense. 1976, we had a study by Dr. Worth, who brought to our attention the real problems with the lead in water in Boston. And this study actually picked it up because our water treatment was different than it is today. And we embarked in the 70s on a lead removal program. So I want to give you a couple of facts. I guess I'm in charge.
You're in charge of that part. There you go.
I want to give you a couple of basic facts about the Boston Water and Sewer Commission. We purchase our water from a state agency, the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority. We're one of 48 communities that get our water from them. They do the treatment for us. We distribute the water. We're a 48 square mile area, the size of Washington, D.C. or San Francisco. So we're small. We're a very small city. We have 1,000 miles of water main, ranging in size from 4-inch to 48-inch. And yes, some of it's very old. We still operate an 1848 pipe, which is in excellent shape in the Boston Common. We have very few main breaks. Our water system is very strong. We have about 35 main breaks per year, and the national average for the size of our system would be about 250. Most of our leaks are on service pipes. That's the kind of good news when you want to replace lead. That's where we got to go in and make the repairs. That's where we can go in and pull out this lead. We believe a lot of it occurred because of galvanic corrosion. Most of our leaks were at the main, where the brass and the lead met. That's where we had the problems. We have 89,000 service pipes. 87,000 were originally in the size that could have been lead, 5/8 through 2-inch. We used lead till 1934. We did find a record. Our city council voted at that time to discontinue the use of lead and to start using copper, a new material they found to be just as pliable. As I mentioned, we've been replacing lead services since the 70s. All of the known lead service pipes in the city of Boston, in the street, in the public way, that we know about have been replaced. But there are 6,000 that are unknown material. So it's not that we're free on this one. There are 6,000. We're going through those actively now. We're culling them out, and we're trying to determine, was the building built after 1940? Clearly, it would be a copper pipe. We'll then go out and measure those. We believe we'll be able to cull those numbers down to 3,000 that we don't know about. We do know that we have 5,091 private lead pipes in the city. And we did that, and I'll mention it later also, when we undertook meter programs, when we were inside the houses. And we're continually updating our inventory of it. This quickly shows you corrosion control, which works very well up in Massachusetts. 1996, they implemented a pH adjustment, and they increased the alkalinity to 40 parts per million, and you can see the dramatic drop. And this continues for corrosion control up in Massachusetts. Now, unfortunately, we're below the action level, but unfortunately, some of the new talk of legislation may be that we have other issues to face because the numbers aren't as low as the numbers we're hearing in that new legislation. Locating the pipes. Many people have records. We've got tons of paper records, but they were excellent up to about 1950. Something happened in 1950 besides the fact I was born. The change occurred. People stopped keeping records. The records were sloppy. They were half done right, half not done, different regimes. So we have a real problem for anything occurring after 50. The good news is we only put in copper. But as we replace them, we don't really know if we did the copper or not. So we went out and we did vacuum excavations where you dig a hole or you vacuum a hole 12 inches in diameter at the main and at the sidewalk, and we actually scrape the pipe. Look, if it looks like a nickel, you got a lead one. Looks like a penny, you got a copper one. But that was very expensive, and we found for $500 each hole, it was costing us, we found at the end of the day only 8% of them were turning out to be lead. So many of the records, as I mentioned, which were wrong, we were replacing them. Most of it was copper. So we stopped that because it was very, very expensive. During our meter replacement, while you're in the building putting in the new meters, you check it out, you have the technician scrape the pipe, he gives us back the information there's lead coming through the wall. But galvanic corrosion again, that may have only been replaced for a foot or two through the foundation wall. There still may be lead out in that lawn, so you just can't walk away from it. You can also do water sampling. Very expensive, but if you figure out the volume of water, you can determine the water that's coming in from the pipe in the front lawn just by measuring how much pipe is in the house, and you'll be able to determine if, in fact, you've got a lead pipe out there. Financing the replacement. Under our capital program, which we have a very large capital program, right now we're doing $40 million a year. We have replaced or repaired 95% of our old system. We've cement lined it, or we've relayed it. And so during that, we would replace them all in the street. We weren't replacing them in the front lawns. Fortunately, leaks occur, and we have programs where the people would have to repair their own, and we went and helped them replace in the front lawn. This is something we had been going on for many years, but it wasn't a direct attempt to remove lead from the front lawns. We can finance out of our current expense budget. We could issue a bond if we chose, but we don't. We just put it in our capital. We don't have a singular lead removal only program. We can seek outside funding sources like your SRF. In Massachusetts, we have the MWRA, who just issued a program where they make available $100 million available to the cities and towns, which is a loan, interest-free, where you can borrow it should you want to start a program. So we have that available to us if we wanted to. That is recently as 2 months ago. We try to partner with the property owners. We've been doing this for 10 years, where we give them a $1,000 credit. If you let us replace the pipe, you get a $1,000 credit, and you had 2 years to pay us back the remaining money. We only had 1,000 people take advantage of that. We increased that recently, 2 months ago, to a $2,000 credit with 4 years to pay back. Interest-free, we put it on your water bill. A lot of people have been calling when we give them the number of what it really costs to do the work. So 17-foot setback on a house in the city of Boston with the prices we have now, will cost $3,700. With a $2,000 credit, you have $1,700 bill to pay us. A lot of people say the water looks pretty good, smells pretty good, tastes pretty good. I'll see you later. So we don't have a lot of people jumping at this chance to replace that pipe. One of the things we mentioned, a lot of people, determining the cost of water loss. It costs us $3,300 for 1 million gallons. A 1.9 gallon per minute leak on a service pipe will cost us $3,300 in a year. So it's to our advantage to get out there and get these old lead pipes, many of them are 100 years old, out of the system because it's cost effective on another program you have, and that's your leak detection program. Sorry about the checking. My slides are a little messed up here. The need. What is the need that we have? I think the biggest problem I see is the need to communicate. We've been drinking out of these lead pipes forever. And we've changed our water chemistry, and as you've seen, our numbers have come down. The good news is in the old days, we used to flush the toilet, and that dragged in 5 gallons of water to refill that toilet in the middle of the morning, and we flushed out those pipes. And one of the key things I see us failing to do is continually remind our customers, flush those pipes. Any water that's been sitting there in this lead, move it. And we have been telling them, but we haven't been really pushing it. Now, when we do the private lead replacement and all that, we make a big deal of it. But this is for anybody that's got a lead pipe today. And I think we need to get back to doing all that. We need to tell them if they got lead pipes. Most people don't know. If the water is good, you've got plenty of other things to worry about every day. The shared responsibility. It's tough to make them understand they really own that front lawn pipe. They don't want to hear it. But it's important that you go through it and you talk to them. You got to tell them where they can get the information. We have a website. I'll show you a picture of it. You put in your address, it'll show up if your house has a lead pipe that we know about. You got to make sure when you talk to people, simple pictures. You got to show them pictures, photos, or anything else. Don't make it complicated. Don't tell them about the neuroscience of lead and the dangers and that. Just tell them lead is not good for you. Everybody can understand that. We're trying to get it out. And then what you do is refer them to their doctors. We are not doctors. We're not public health people in that sense to tell you how it reacts with your body. And don't get involved in a conversation either with your customers or with the press. That's not your end. You got to do it in all languages, something we forget a lot. We all think the whole world speaks English. There's so many people that will see that. They may know a little English, but they're not going to pay attention unless it's in their language and the dangers. Talk to them. And I think the biggest problem we're seeing now, get the information to the landlords, not to the renters. Get the information to the renters, not to the landlords. Everything we do is we communicate with the landlord, pay your bill. They pay all the bills. But they don't live there necessarily. A lot of the people in the environmental justice areas are living in homes owned by people who don't live there. And yet we're communicating with this landlord saying, take out this pipe, we'll give you a good deal. Why does he care if the water's working fine and no one's complaining? Why does he care about spending any extra money? He's not drinking the water. So we've got to reverse that and get to these renters and get to these people that are actually consuming the water and deal with them. So targeted mailings, we did a mailing in 2006. We got a bunch of people, some were active, we replaced 1,000. We're going to change that to have targeted mailings every 3 years. If we know you've got a lead pipe, we will pester you. Why? A lot of homes are turning over, and the people may have already moved out. You may be starting a new family. At first, you didn't care about it, you didn't have a lot of money, but now you have a child. Now you care. So we got to keep reminding you, and that isn't just with the bill stuffers. Bill stuffers aren't good. This will be a targeted. We're going to find out who lives there and mail it to them. We want to highlight on our website to show everybody this is what's going on. And you know what? People look up theirs, they'll see their neighbors, they'll talk to them about it. A lot of questions about whether we should be telling people that. This is a quick example of our website, of what it looks like. You pull it up, put your address in, you'll see the homes. You'll see the yellow homes there. That tells the neighborhood about who has got a particular problem. This is our lead replacement program. It's a brochure. It's free to copy. It's on our website. The one thing I mentioned earlier, it's in English. It is not in multiple languages, something that we're going to be working on to take care of it. So I guess to wrap it up is the lead pipes got to go. They got to go, but it's going to take time. I don't care who in here's got a program. You're still looking at a 5 to 10 year program to find them all and to get them out and convince the customers to work with you. It's their property. The inventory of pipes should be your first step. If you haven't started working on it, you've got to work on that now. You got to review your financing options. How do you build it in? Do you build it in a particular rate case or whatever? Public education, I can't emphasize enough, is the most important thing you can do. Tell them to flush the pipes. Get clean water in there all the time. The occupants of the properties, I mentioned that earlier. That is extremely important that you get to them. Partner with all your health partners. We have them on our brochure. They talk to the people about health. We don't. There's an AWWA-led resources community page. It's very valuable. Contact other utilities. We're open all the time for anybody that wants to know how we've done it and where we've gone. I leave you the address of the Boston Water Sewer Commission and also my personal one. Any emails you'd like, send them to me. I know how to give them to someone who knows how to answer it properly for whatever your question is, and we'll get back to you right away. So thank you very much.
And that video was the Water and Sewer Commission for Boston that created that video. It's on my Facebook. You can check it out, Ryan's Recap News and Sports. It's right on a group Facebook page. But overall, what John Sullivan mentions too is that the loan has to be given in a full amount. So towns would have to all go in on this loan, and it would replace all the lead piping in Boston. But with the lead piping, and you've had an opinion with Boston replacing the pipes using copper because you believe it's an unsafe and wrong way to go about fixing the pipes. So why do you feel this way?
I feel this way because copper, again, is another metal. And if you do your research on copper water service lines that are, again, being replaced, replacing the lead service lines, we're taking one metal out and we're putting another metal in. And what is happening is that there's a disease known as the Wilson disease, which I believe you have a video of that you're going to be showing. Wait till you see what happens to people who have too much copper entering into their systems. This affects them mentally. It affects them with their major organs, their livers, their kidneys. It can be a fatal disease. So here we are pulling out lead services in the years 2000s, and we're replacing it with copper because we found that lead is a major health risk to our consumers who are drinking Boston's water. My question would be, why replace it with something that is offering no better advantage health-wise? In fact, you know, when you look at this video, you'll see what I'm talking about, is that it's a nasty disease to occur if such people have it. And to me, there's safer alternatives, health-wise, plastic being one of them. We represent companies that are involved in high-density polyethylene resins that manufacture or extrude coils of plastic tubing that are AWWA approved, which is the American Water Works Association approved. They're NSF approved, which is the National Sanitary Foundation out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. They have no problem as far as many of the towns and cities here in the Commonwealth are using plastic today versus using copper or lead. And the Safe Drinking Water Act, let's realize, okay, it's not just attacking lead, it's attacking copper as well. So my thoughts would be is that can we allow the public, okay, to be able to go to their local water companies and have an alternative other than metal services to go to plastic services, which not only are healthier, but they're less expensive, they last longer. I mean, I have a full list of advantages that the plastic can offer. I don't believe replacing lead with copper is the answer.
Mm-hmm. So overall, it's kind of a routine we are getting into and a constant cycle where you'll have the lead now being replaced because it's not healthy, it's awful, it can cause many problems with your body, and then now you have the copper pipes coming in, and I'm just gonna show this video, and just for people at home, it's a little bit graphic, so brace yourself, but it's based off of Wilson's disease, which is another disease that can come through copper. Let's take a look.
ಇದು ಹಿಡ್ಕೋಬೇಡ ಹಂಗೆ ಬಿಡು ಕೈ ಹಂಗೆ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡು ಓಕೆ ಟೇಕ್ ದಿಸ್ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಲೀವ್ ಇಟ್ You should take the extensor posturing if he gets the dystonia. Take his face also, his mouth posturing. Nothing peculiar here.
Yeah, it's quite the video we just saw there. But overall, it really meets the impact of these metal companies. If they're deciding to replace lead pipes with copper pipes, even though they may know that there are health defects with copper and copper pipes, then, Bill, what's the reason it's not being advocated to replace the pipes with plastic?
In a lot of the towns and cities, it is. You'll find that some of the major metropolitans here in the Commonwealth are using plastic. They've been using it for a period of time. If you're interested, we can always provide that info as far as what towns are using it, what towns aren't. Many of the towns and cities offer copper or plastic as an alternative. And I think that's what we're looking for, is to at least give the consumer an option. Many of the towns and municipalities will not allow plastic to be used because it's not spec'd into their specifications. And thus, okay, they don't have the option to be able to use a safer, more affordable product. When Boston talks about the cost of having to replace a lead service, two of the major costs, okay, would be the excavation of the ground to get to the service line, and also what you're replacing it with. Keep in mind, okay, that copper today is probably about 20 times more expensive per foot than is plastic. So, you know, not only can we save the cities and towns money, okay, which is saving their customers, the citizens of Massachusetts, but we're also being able to provide them with safer product. As you just saw, this is a disease that can occur. It's slim, there's no doubt about it, okay? There's not many people that have Wilson's disease, I'm sure, here in Massachusetts. But if we continue to put in more services that are copper-based, we will increase the potential for the Wilson's disease to rear its ugly head.
Mm-hmm. And you found that with plastic, there is no contaminants that could in any way seep in.
What we've found in plastics is that plastics can permeate oil-based products, petroleum-based products, but you're probably taking a look at 1/1000th of installations where that would be a factor. So if you're near a gas station or an oil tank that's buried underground, today the tanks that are being utilized in gas stations and even oil tanks for consumers that are heating their homes with oil, they're dual contained tanks. In other words, they have a surrounding tank surrounding the inner tank, so that if the inner tank breaks, okay, there's a surrounding tank to act as a safety barrier for seepage not to occur, which we're happy to see happen. I mean, it not only prevents seepage from coming into our plastic, but it also prevents a major haphazard situation for the consumer to have to pay for if they have to have it all dug up and removed. So as far as health reasons of seepage, okay, of any lead or copper byproducts, it doesn't exist in plastic. Okay, plastic is non-corrosive. I mean, its advantages are it's lighter weight, it's non-corrosive, it has continuous use. So there's some good advantages to it. And health-wise, I would say that that's the big thing I'm trying to push, is that it's a healthier product over copper and certainly over lead.
All right, that's quite the point you've made. Overall, we're going to take a quick PSA break.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
Welcome back to Ryan's Recap, and we're going to get into showing you a few of the pieces here. Like Mr. Sullivan, he says that most leaks were on service pipes at the main and where brass and lead met. I was wondering if you had the pipe here to demonstrate.
Sure I do.
Is it the longer pipes?
The circular pipe, if we have that.
If I could have an assistant bring that circular pipe over. Now, you've been in the business for many years.
40.
40. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is actually what it looks like. It comes in coil form, very similar to the K-copper that Mr. Sullivan was talking about, that they're replacing the lead services. Some of the advantages of it is that it's lightweight. This is 100 feet of 1 inch, 250 PSI rated tubing. They use compression fittings on this or flared fittings to connect it. And one of the big advantages we have is that we have continuous use. In other words, we have these in 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, 500 feet. You can order it right up to 1,000 foot if you wish, okay? Where what it does, it eliminates the need for fittings to join the plastic together and where there could be a potential leak occurring. So less fittings are going to cut down on cost, number one. Number two, they're going to cut down on the potential for leaks to occur. It's just the way it is, okay? Anytime you take a product and try to join it together with a coupling or a union or a male adapter, the potential for leaking, okay, goes up versus having a product that's continuous, okay, in length. We carry it in 3/4 inch, 1 inch, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, and 2 inch, again in various lengths. It's lightweight, it's plastic, so it's non-corrosive. You don't have to worry about soil conditions being acidic, attacking it on the outside. You have nothing to worry about as far as flow rates on the inside. It will collect a film just like copper does, but it doesn't have mineral buildup as it does in copper, which will affect your flow rates eventually. You don't have to worry about water standing in it, okay, and flushing it like they're talking about on the video with Mr. Sullivan. So the advantages of the plastic as far as installing wise, it's much lighter weight, easier to use. Price wise to the consumer, your taxpayers here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we can save them a fortune. As I stated earlier, the two biggest expenses of replacing a service or putting a new service in is the excavation equipment coming in, okay, to dig it up. And then number two would be the product that you're putting in. And copper being 20 times the cost is going to be a lot more expensive. Thank you.
And we have another tool over here I'm going to grab. It's, now how would these incorporate into the plumbing and the situation of putting plastic
These are just
piping in?
straight lengths that I had extruded, okay? But what I was going to show you is that it comes in the color blue, or it also comes in the color black. One of the problems with plastic that's perceived out there is that how do you locate it? Metals you can locate, okay? Any type of metal locator will work up to 7, 8, 10 feet. The average depth, okay, that's being buried is anywhere from 4 feet to 5 feet, and usually as far as your service lines go. But what I wanted to be able to show is that what they also have is a magnetic tape that you can purchase at any one of the distributors that are in the waterworks end of the business, which there are plenty of them in the New England area as well as the Massachusetts area, so that you can locate it. You just put the tape right a foot above the plastic. And what's nice about that is if there ever is a problem, okay, or they're putting in some type of gas pipe, which by the way, they use plastic on the gas pipe that's made of the same material as our water pipe is, what will happen, okay, it will indicate that there's plastic below it once they see the tape that they're bringing up through the excavator. So it's a product, like I say, that offers a lot of advantages. This is just a sample that we show people. It has permanent indentation so that 20 years from now, if you need to know whose plastic it is, you'll be able to recognize this. This is Silverline plastic out of Asheville, North Carolina. This is one of the plastic fittings that we're using these days. It's called a Flowplast compression fitting. Can replace the brass fittings, which again have a certain percentage of lead inside of them. So this is all lead-free, lightweight.
It is very light, yes. Overall, too, these are recyclable. They can be reused.
Yeah, what they can do is they can regrind it, and they can use it as a low-density product for whatever type of applications that they want it for. Milk cartons, you could reuse it and make more plastic pipe. The only thing you would probably void would be the NSF seal of approval for drinking water. You wouldn't be able to use it for drinking water, but for like irrigation systems, for lawn sprinkler irrigation systems, no problem at all.
And I understand that in Massachusetts, the gas industry is using these pipes quite a bit.
The gas industry is very active in using what is known as DR11 plastics, okay? The DR is just it signifies that it's an outer diameter controlled plastic. So is the CTS that you have in your hands. We also manufacture it in an iron pipe size, which is an ID controlled, meaning inner diameter controlled. But the gas business natural gas has been using this for years. And I look at it this way, if they have enough trust to use it for gas, okay, I feel that we should definitely have enough trust in being able to use it for water.
I'm going to just put these down for now, but overall, too, I'm just trying to get a sense of the big picture. I personally have an opinion where I feel that the companies, the metal companies, are possibly putting in the copper pipes, and we're going to have the same problem 10 years down the road where you have contamination, and then they're going to replace the pipes with taxpayers' money. Now, just based off that, do you find that truthful in some sense?
Well, I think that the biggest problem we have is that people tend to not want to change, okay, for fear of being the first one to venture into something that's new. Just so that people realize plastic has been being utilized for service lines since the 1950s. So it's a relatively infant product as far as age-wise goes compared to metal products being used. But I think that the big thing is that, again, it's a proven fact that AWWA approves it, NSF approves it. We have all the standards and all the testing facilities approving the product. I believe that what we need is that the water superintendents of these water companies to allow plastic to be used, or K-copper if they wish to use it, but let that be the decision of the homeowner, not the municipality. As long as we meet the specs, okay, that are safe, effective, easy to install, I believe that we have a superior product.
Now, going back to that video, even though there's different spectrums on how to replace the piping, John Sullivan mentions a lack of communication, and he says that's part of a big step that they're trying to do, the businesses, the companies. So with that, you're kind of also mentioning that communication, lack of information. Where do you see down the road both companies trying to develop getting their information out, processing it so the consumer knows?
Unfortunately, Ryan, I think what happens, okay, is that it takes something like Flint, Michigan, for people to realize, okay, that how important their water is. I mean, you know, I don't know about you, but I turn on a faucet and I expect water to come out. I'm trusting that that's safe drinking water. When I flick on a light switch, I expect the lights to work. Okay, it's a safe way, okay, to be able to heat my home. It's a safe way so I can read a book at night, I can watch TV. We take these things for granted, okay? But I think what we need to do is we need to take a look at our water, okay? We need water in order to live. It's that important. So we need to make sure that the water that we're drinking is safe, potable drinking water. And if it's not, we need to take the measures to make it safe. I believe that the commissioner, okay, is doing the right thing, pulling lead out of there, okay? My hat's off to that, to the commissioner and to the Water and Sewer Commission. But I also believe that we need to take time out and take a look at what are we replacing it with. And take a real good look at that, and let's not make the same mistake that was made years ago, putting in lead by putting in copper today.
Now, which is a bigger problem in your industry? Because we've mentioned several times Flint, Michigan. Flint, Michigan also was a problem between cutting corners and costs and having the water come from the Flint River. Is it a bigger issue in your industry of companies trying to cut corners through taking something like another water source, or is it a bigger issue that you have copper piping, things that maybe are a smaller issue, but down the road could cause more problems?
I think the second is what you're taking a look at. I mean, I don't, most of the water here, I believe in your Boston area, comes from the Quabog Reservoir, or the Quabbin Reservoir out near central Massachusetts. I believe that we in New England have probably some of the best water in the country. So I think that as far as our sources of water go, I think we have superior water. If you have a private water well system, many people prefer to have that versus the municipality due to the fact that they can control and test their own water. They're the owner of their own water. In the municipalities, which what we're talking about here with the Boston Water and Sewer Commission, we're talking about where these are people that are telling you what you're going to be drinking versus you making a choice of what you want to drink.
I want to remind my viewers also on this whole topic, you can go to Rafael Hernandez School June 13th, Monday at 6 p.m. and they're going to be discussing the schools and overall the water issue. I want to thank my guest, Bill Hastings. Thank you for coming on the show. I want to thank my crew in the back. I'm Ryan Chevalier. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.